Alright, on today's Giraffe Talk, we're going to be going over 10 walls. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump. We're going to be talking about the situation in Venezuela, the European Union. We're going to talk about a bunch of e-celebrities that finally faced some kind of comeuppance. And we're definitely going to spend a whole hell of a lot of time talking about the release of the Epstein Files. Holy shit, they're finally here. We're finally going to go over them. We're finally going to know the truth. We're finally going to lock up these goddamn pedophiles. It's finally fucking happening.
Breaking news. Suspect is still on the run.
Victim remains.
We will explain how it affects you and your expert sources.
The story is still developing. Reports still remain unconfirmed.
They're calling it Kino.
Now, the question on a lot of people's mind is Tim Walz mentally disabled? The Minnesota governor may have found himself in a huge case of fraud. Tim Walz is facing accusations that he allowed Medicaid fraud to happen. This is involving $1 billion involved in Medicaid housing services that were supplied to Somalian citizens. The claim is that they sent it to terrorist organizations back in their home country. Now, apparently he didn't really crack down on this because he's afraid that he'd be accused of being a racist. He just kind of let it fucking happen. So if this is true, Donald Trump's assessment of Tim Walz's mental state may be accurate. This guy is mentally disabled. Now let's look at some positive news. Andrei Arlovsky was assaulted by loser Jack Doherty and his little entourage. And he whooped their fucking asses, in particular the bodyguard. And in the same weekend, the top G himself, Andrew Tate, got his fucking ass whooped by Chasten Moore. He said he kind of expected it. He's obviously an older man, he's past his prime, but he was trying to conquer his fear. We finally saw Jake Paul get his fucking ass whooped by Anthony Joshua, breaking his fucking jaw in 2 places. There is some hope in the world. There is some positivity. The education department has asked over 1,000 employees to return to their jobs. This is right after Doge was quietly dissolved. So did this organization actually save us any fucking money at all? Was it effective in any of its cost-cutting measures? Speaking of this, are we actually going to see the $5,000 reimbursement that Donald Trump and Elon Musk promised us? Donald Trump's also saying we get about $2,000 made in profit from tariffs. So will these reimbursements actually happen? And if it does, is it going to crash the economy like the PPP loans and like the stimulus package during COVID? Costco is also suing Donald Trump over these tariffs, saying they're forcing them to increase their prices and harm their customers. Speaking of Elon Musk, X was fined $140 million by the European Union. And Elon Musk says we must dissolve the European Union. Donald Trump backs up this plan and also says the United States needs to leave NATO. He thinks that they don't serve American interests and they're kind of being unfair to Russia. He's been urging Italy, Poland, Hungary, and Austria to leave the European Union. And he explored the idea of having an alternative to G7, including Russia and China. He says these will fit more with the modern goals of this current administration. Now there is this growing sentiment around the MAGA base that to protect the Western world and Western values, we need to leave NATO and the European Union and join up with Eastern countries like Russia and China. How does this make sense? I don't fucking know. Is this a mask-off moment, saying that the United States wants to ally with Russia? Yeah, probably. Now this got some people worried about the United States. And in a monumental, historic first, NATO has finally declared the United States to be a security threat. And the French President Macron, in a leaked document, has stated the United States is planning on betraying Ukraine to help out Russia. And speaking of the Ukraine-Russian conflict, Putin has stated he's going to stop at absolutely nothing to take the entire Donbass region. No negotiation is going to change his mind. And in regards to the Ukrainian conflict, it seems like the radiation shield around Chernobyl has been damaged by Russian drones. Now the reason why the shield was constructed is because of the fears of radioactive material falling into the waterways and affecting all of Eastern Europe. God damn, this is depressing. Now in record time, Congress managed to pass a $901 billion defense funding for the United States military. I guess when it's dealing with killing people, the Congress can actually do their job. Donald Trump has announced the production of the Golden Fleet. It's going to be a series of battleships called Trump-class battleships. And these will be utterly massive and filled with nuclear weapons. Now you see, the reason why we stopped building massive battleships is because they're an obvious target and is an outdated concept. But Donald Trump has said he doesn't really give a shit about this. And Donald Trump has appointed an envoy to Greenland. He said he's going to take Greenland no matter what the cost, no matter what the European Union says. Huh, why does it sound familiar? what's going on? So in Venezuela, after killing over 80 people on boats, we've seized now the second oil tanker. So most of the chemicals utilized in the production of fentanyl is coming in from China. Now you see, we gotta kill these Venezuelans because there's fentanyl coming in from China. So now fentanyl has been classified as a weapon of mass destruction by Donald Trump. And so we gotta blow up these boats that are still 1,000 miles away from the United States to stop the fentanyl from coming in. Or some shit. This has made people concerned. Perhaps this whole conflict in Venezuela is to provoke the country to fighting back and to utilize it as an excuse for a land invasion in Venezuela, destabilizing the government and allowing OPEC to retain control over the natural resources of Venezuela. Now, some people have floated the idea of impeaching Pete Hegseth because of his actions regarding Venezuela. President Trump says not to worry, that we are going to war for oil again. Venezuela has stolen all of the oil from the United States, somehow, which is the greatest natural resource in Venezuela, and we gotta intervene and get all of it back. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said that the time has came to shed the idea of a utopian idealism in America. We need to focus more on kicking ass. And I don't know, this is sounding familiar. What's going on? What are they talking about? Where do I remember this? A terrible regime. WMDs. Oil. Can't be Iraqi War II. The Venezuelan Boogaloo. But there is some good news. Donald Trump won the first ever annual FIFA Peace Prize award. And he says that, you know what? We need to rename football. Soccer's the real football, obviously. The NFL shit, something totally different. Donald Trump, Michael Dell, and Susan Dell have announced the Trump account. This is a $1,000 investment for kids. Hopefully this won't turn out like the Trump coin or the Melania coin, which has now cost over $1 billion of wealth to be completely wiped out. There has been an active shooting event at Brown University, which left 9 injured and 4 dead. Bonny Beach in Australia has also seen an active shooting event during Hanukkah, which has left 15 people dead. Now RFK has announced that they're going to change the childhood vaccination schedule. We're not doing it for RSV, we're not doing it for the rotavirus, chickenpox, meningitis, or hepatitis A. Now, this is right after the news of the measles outbreak in South Carolina. So is getting rid of vaccines really helping us? Does the cost and the pros, like, how do they weigh out? Famous Hollywood director Rob Reiner and his wife were unfortunately murdered by their son. In response to this, Donald Trump said it was a case of Trump derangement syndrome. Rob Reiner could not shut the fuck up about Trump, and he pissed everyone off, and his son had no choice but to fucking kill him. The FBI has designated Antifa to be the biggest threat to national security, but they can't tell us where they're headquartered at. They can't tell us who's in charge. They can't tell us how many members of Antifa there are. So, I guess the FBI fucking sucks, or this organization may not fucking exist. The United States is going to require citizens from the European Union to give up their biometric data, the phone numbers and the email addresses from the last 10 years, the employment history and phone numbers and emails of the family members to come into the United States. Now, is this a matter of national security, or is Palantir trying to increase their database on people's personal information? Probably both. Federal judges have determined that Donald Trump must return the disaster relief funding to Democratic states. The congressional maps of Texas have been approved to be redrawn. In more positive news, Donald Trump has reclassified marijuana as a Schedule III drug. And also Donald Trump has announced the Patriot Games. We're going to get a male and female from each state and each territory to compete in a 4-day athletic challenge. What does this mean? Probably Donald Trump finally got around to watching the Hunger Games series. And there's a civil war within the right-wing grifters sphere. Mostly, this is because of Candace Owens saying that there's a conspiracy to get Charlie Kirk killed, and people firing back against him. Tim Pool had a second annual mental breakdown, said he's going to crash out and live in a van down by the river. Alex Jones is depressed that it seems like Israel might be behind the whole Epstein debacle, and a lot of Republican politicians are seemingly implicated in these crimes, and the Trump administration is covering it up. Then we got Tucker Carlson that's not holding rank and file with the rest of the right-wing grifter podcast world. So it seemed like they were going to meet the release date for the Epstein Files. It was supposed to be released on Friday, and House Republicans called for an early Christmas break. Turns out they were tired, man. They worked a full 80 days this year, and they had to shut down the government. And the Department of Justice said they were not going to go reach the Friday deadline to release the Epstein Files. But it looks like the files got released anyways. This is Giraffe Productions.
The Epstein Files.
It looks like the files have been almost entirely redacted. We got less than 1% of the overall files, and at least 90% of it is completely blacked out. Now there are some pictures that implicate Clinton, and he probably did do some nasty shit. There are some pictures that implicate Michael Jackson. Wow, what a surprise! Michael Jackson was involved in child abuse? Oh no! Who could have seen it coming? And it tells us nothing that we didn't already know. You're telling me that Donald Trump had a bunch of FBI agents comb through thousands of information, flagging any responses with his name, shutting down the government, working on it for 6 months, giving over $1 million in overtime, and in conclusion they found no mention of Trump, and then they still had to black out everything? How does that make sense? I feel like the American people are being taken for a ride. Kash Patel tells us that there's no evidence of human trafficking. You look at the unredacted files, and there obviously is some evidence of human trafficking. We told her there's no footage of the cells that Epstein was in when he committed suicide. But then we find out there is footage, and then they release it, and we find out it's heavily edited. So obviously what they meant by transparent administration is that we're gonna have the most obvious cover-up of all time. There's nothing that we can do about it. Thomas Macy has floated the idea of impeaching Pam Bondi. I don't know, I feel like all this stuff has put me in a terrible mood. We started this year with a whole host of problems, and absolutely none of them have been solved. I'm kind of in a bad mood about this. I don't have the mental capacity to investigate the Epstein Files. It looks like most of it has been redacted, and they're still redacting further files. Here we are thinking that the Trump administration is finally going to drain the swamp and lock up all of the swamp monsters. And it looks like all they've been fucking doing is playing their own little swamp monsters. You're watching Giraffe TV.
Let's look back on 2025.
2025 would prove itself to be a truly insane year, filled with the most outlandish events you could think of. Every time one would end, 2 more would pop off. They both went by incredibly fast, but stuck around way too goddamn long. So let's look at the major events that affected fellow Americans such as you and I. Started off with terror attacks on New Year's Eve in New Orleans, and after that we had the horrific fires in California. And soon after the start of Donald Trump's presidency, we would see the death and rebirth of TikTok, which broke the hearts of many Zoomers, filled with joy once they saw they could take their addiction up again. We would see the birth of Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency. Initially, we thought they would trim the fat off of government organizations, and we would see these government organizations run faster and save the taxpayer dollars. It seemed like they didn't really accomplish a lot, except for getting Americans' data stolen by Russia, and they would quietly dissolve towards the end of the year. We'd see a string of plane crashes, mid-air collisions, and deaths from natural disasters. There was a massive crackdown on immigration, and ICE raids became commonplace. ICE itself would become militarized and greatly expand the number of members they had, and would legally granted federal immunity to all law. A new system of tariffs was put in place, greatly affecting the economy and our international relations. The U.S. military, under the direction of Pete Hegseth, would bomb Yemen again. Now, killing people in Yemen is a proud tradition that started with the Obama administration. Ozempic would hit the streets and radically transform people's health. And with the coming of this weight loss miracle drug, the body positivity movement pretty much died out. And the same Easter weekend, we would see the death of the Pope, and Kanye West admitted to sucking his cousin's dick. This one weekend was so insane that I legitimately felt devastated that I did not make a draft video covering the event, and motivated me to get a channel up and running again. Conflicts in the Gaza Strip and Ukraine would continue, despite Donald Trump saying he's going to bring an end to them pretty fast. Realistically, these are very complex conflicts. These aren't conflicts that can be resolved overnight or over the weekend. We'd also see the National Guard deployed in multiple cities. Now, despite a lot of people being worried about martial law, once this happened, they decided they didn't really give a fuck after all. Unfortunately, we'd also see political assassinations regarding multiple lawmakers and Charlie Kirk. Now, depending on the reaction to these deaths, people began to snitch on the community members, try to get them fired, try to get them arrested, and overall, I think it was a successful social engineering experiment to see if we can get Americans to snitch on their neighbors. The AI arms race is heating up. Companies are trying to utilize AI to the fullest potential, whether the consumers want it or not. They tell us it's here to stay. Says fucking who? The United States also engaged in a string of boat strikes, killing many Venezuelans. Is this a prelude to the war? Guess we gotta wait till 2026 to find out. The United States would also promise to try to take Canada, Greenland, Denmark, Mexico, Panama, and Venezuela, and would make motions to try to dissolve NATO and the European Union. 2025 will see one of the longest government shutdowns in United States history. And in the end, Chuck Schumer decided to take it up the ass and sign the budget anyways, which kind of renders the whole little protest pointless. They weren't even going to try to negotiate, they should have signed the first fucking day. We also see the Lovell heist. Furthermore, we will see one of the most obvious government cover-ups of all time regarding the Epstein Files. Despite all of the distractions, all of the little tricks that the government had, the American people refused to let the Epstein Files controversy die down. We also see a civil war break out in Sudan, and the year would end with shootings at Bonny Beach in Sydney, Australia, and Brown University. At the end of the day, it doesn't seem like too many things have improved for the average American. But that's not to say to fall into despair. There's no better time to change the world than today. Fantastic news! Startling update! All U.S. citizens be ready for some earth-shattering news! All Africans prepare for combat. Turns out the dumbasses in the FBI who try to redact the Epstein Files used the highlighter function. They didn't actually erase any of the text. You can simply copy it and put it in a notepad for the most part and see what they're talking about. It seems like they censored way more than just the personal information of the victims. And some of this information does implicate our standing president. The Department of Justice officials said they got 1 million more documents regarding the Epstein case. The Department of Justice has been scrambling over themselves, desperately trying to find volunteers who want to work through the holidays and continue censoring and redacting the Epstein Files. Now what does this mean? Well, more than likely, the people behind the Epstein human trafficking, child pedophilia sex ring are going to face no consequences. But at least the public will know what they're up to. Now some people have floated the idea that maybe there's an FBI agent who had a conscience and said, hey, I gotta do something about this. More than likely is that we have some of the dumbest people imaginable in the FBI. Now the primary attribute they've been looking for new applicants for the FBI has been ones that have said that they are loyal to the Trump administration, which isn't too much better than what they said was going on with DEI hires. Honestly, it's probably fucking worse. Now guess what this means? Giraffe gonna have an investigative episode on not only the Epstein Files, but also this phenomenally shitty cover-up of the Epstein Files. You're watching Giraffe TV.
Now, a musical performance. Mind-blowing practice.
This song's called Mothman. Most of the time, I don't know what to choose. Who I'm gonna be or what I'm gonna do. Most of the time, I fail when it's impossible to lose. Most of the time, I'm thinking of you. La, la, da, da, da. Most of the time, I don't know who I am. Most of the time I'm looking through a screen. Most of the time I'm miles from home. Most of the time I feel unseen. So I'm sorry if I scream when I say the only thing I've done right is love you. I wish that my life was better. I sit around and don't make it right. It's like you're in a car crash and then waking up and you're waiting for it to happen. It won't happen. Or I think you're an outcast and you're surrounded by some shady people who happen. Always happen. So I'm sorry if I scream. this next part, for anybody that wants to join along, I'm going to instruct you. So, I'm going to tell you how to sing the last part of the song. We got a bridge right before the end, and then at the end you're going to join us. So it goes like la, la da da da, la da da da, goodbye. Alright, I want you to try it with me now. La, la da da da, la da da da, goodbye. Alright, we're gonna do the ends and they're gonna join us. Touch my wings, or I won't be able to fly. Don't touch my wings,